What should a leader not do?
They shouldn't react. A leader should always respond. The best thing that I could do for my children and for this world as a whole is to turn them into level 3 listeners, leaders that respond and that are steady and make people feel safe. How do you be a great dad? Every day you wake up and you have the title dad, and dad's a leadership role. So every day we lead.
Schuyler, welcome back.
Let's do it.
The first show was amazing. The world will never see it because the files were lost. And yet here we are again, round 2, man.
Yeah.
And in some ways perfectly fitting for a guy who is known as the steady leader, and throwing a little test our way to see how serious we were about this conversation was really great. So I'm looking forward to this, man.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Let's start with a 60-second, who is Schuyler? Tell me a little bit about yourself so that the world can know, your heart and what you care about and where you come from.
Yeah. I'll just start. I'm a man full of faith, full of love, and I love models. And so my brain works as a true engineer in that things are modeled for us. And I love the quote of standing on other shoulders so that you can see farther. And, that's who I am. So at my core, that's who I am. I grew up with very little from a financial standpoint, but tons of love. My parents were great examples of how to love fierce and how to work really hard. But I didn't learn any lessons about financial production or business or anything like that. And very little about leadership too. My parents had me very young. My mom, I think, got pregnant with me at 17. And my father was 20. And, when you're that young, you're not making any money.
Yeah.
And you haven't had a chance to lead anything yet. And so I learned a lot just throughout my life. I was able and blessed to go to West Point for my undergraduate degree, which, they teach you how to lead there. I played some professional baseball, which there were some extraordinary coaches. So I learned what a great coach was. I went into the military and fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, 2 different wars with 2 very different landscapes. And so I was tested with a lot of chaos and leadership opportunity in that. And then now, I've been in the corporate world, both as a W-2 employee and as an entrepreneur. And so I've seen in my 40 some odd years, I've seen a lot of different environments, and God's just blessed me with experience after experience, and with a mind that can capture it because I look for the model in things.
That's right.
And so that's who I am. I am a father of 2, and this is my 20th year wedding anniversary. So I'm married, and to me it's God, family, business, and I try to live that way.
Who's one of the greatest leaders that you've encountered in your life, and what did you learn from them?
It would be hard for me to put my finger on one person. People are flawed. All of us are. I have my flaws. My wife has her flaws. Every leader that I've ever worked for or been a part of, they're flawed. But everyone also has such beauty. And not only just at their core and who they are, but also in the way that they lead according to their superpowers. And so I really have tried to soak in the good about every person that I come into contact with. And to the point of I even look at my children, and, one's my connector and one's my inventor. I don't tell them that because I don't want to label them, but in my mind, that's who they are. That's who they're going to be just because their personality. But there's 2 people that I've loved their definition of leadership more than most. And one is John Maxwell, and he's a great mentor for me without him even knowing who I am. But his definition of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. It's influence. And then I love Gary Keller's definition of leadership in that we teach people how to think so that they can get what they want. And if they're aligned with us, we will get what we want. And so leaders do 2 things all day long, every day. That's influence people and teach them how to think. And so that's at the foundation of my core from a leadership perspective, is that. And then of course, I'm a Christian, and, the God that I follow is all about love. And so if I can teach people how to think and I can influence them, and then I will love my way through leadership to the end.
You're not like most men. You don't just scroll, you study. You don't just parent, you lead. And you don't just read, you implement. And that's why we made this, a no-fluff, battle-tested list of books that sharpen men like you. Picked by our tribe, proven in real life, these books are gonna stretch your mind, fuel your growth, and challenge who you thought you had to be. These aren't just great reads, they're tools to help you grow as a father, husband, and a man. Get the list and all the insights that bring it to life at frontrowdads.com/books. Being former military, Ranger, seen action in Iraq, right? Mm-hmm. I know that there are some stories in your book that are pretty chaotic.
Yeah.
Tell me about that from the standpoint of there's an opening story in your book that I think articulates that well. Take us there as well to see the flip side of this.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start with the point of the story, and then I'll tell you the story, because I think it's almost better to expect it this way. But leaders have to operate with chaos.
Yeah.
You can't pray chaos away. You can't hope it away. You can't hire someone that makes chaos go away. I mean, there are people that have skills and maybe can limit it, but chaos finds you, whether you're having extraordinary success or failure. And when I was in Iraq, and this is how I opened the book, we were on a patrol. And look, we did 3 patrols a day, and we were in a Sunni area where Al-Qaeda was in charge. And Al-Qaeda's weapon of choice was a roadside bomb. And they would attack us with small arm fire, but they knew that it was more terrorizing if they used bombs and used them in a big way. And they did in this area. And we did live and operated in a city called Al-Amariya, which is where Al-Qaeda on video said, this is the last city that we'll lose in Baghdad. And so we were in the most fierce battle with Al-Qaeda that you could have in Baghdad. And so we were on a patrol, and one of our sister platoons over the battalion radio had been engaged with an IED. It was successful. They had casualties, and they were under small arm fire, meaning the attack was still going on. And they were in a bad way. And in the U.S. Army, when your sister platoon or another unit is under contact and suffering casualties, you don't wait for the commander to tell you to move. You start moving there. And so I gave my unit the command to move in their direction. And as a leader, I had a decision to make. Do we take the long way to them that would be safer? Or do we take the short way where it's very unsafe? And I'll get to the reason for that here shortly. Well, lives were at stake, so I chose to go the short way. Now, on the way to that dangerous area of our route, I told the guys, hey, listen, if anyone is struck by an IED, what we're going to do is the person behind them is going to push them through the kill zone. And then once we're out of the kill zone, we'll reorganize and, treat our casualties.
Push them with their car.
Yep. Yeah. So we were taking Humvees to where our sister platoon was attacked. A lot of times we were on the ground just walking. This patrol, we happened to be in Humvees.
Okay.
And so we had a plan, right? And that's one thing that I did really well as a leader in that moment. I prepared my team for the worst case scenario. Well, we hit the most dangerous area where we thought we might get attacked, and it was an off-ramp. So we were coming off a highway on an off-ramp to the city where the other platoon was being attacked. And it channeled our traffic into one lane. And there was guardrails on both sides of the lane, which were perfect for hiding IEDs behind. Well, as the enemy would have it, they had IEDs there, and they were successful. They blew their IED up on my vehicle. And it was very successful. I was hurt, but every single soldier in our truck was hurt. And I had that fog of war moment where my ears were ringing. There was dust all in the truck because the shrapnel had actually penetrated the vehicle, and it created a vacuum. So all the sand and dust from outside was sucked into the vehicle, so we couldn't see. My driver was trying to crank the vehicle, but I could see blood in his ears coming down. So he was injured, but he was just trying to muscle through it. My gunner in my turret was completely unconscious. The concussion had knocked him completely out. And the two guys behind me in the truck were screaming because shrapnel had hit their body, and it's burning metal. And so here I am in this moment, fog of war, like clearly my brain was shook up too. That's why my ears were ringing and I was just kind of in this slow motion thought process. Guys screaming behind me. I know everybody's hurt. My vehicle won't start. But I heard on the radio, "Sir, what should we do? What should we do?" And, in the moment, I told them to execute the plan and push through and things went according to plan, right? But as I've thought about that and reflected on that experience as a leader, the aha that I had was, it doesn't matter if you're the most lethal platoon in the whole battalion, which we were. I reported directly to the colonel. He put us wherever he needed us, where the main effort was. And it didn't matter that we were the most elite group or the best at executing as Army soldiers. Chaos found us. And it didn't matter that my vehicle was the targeted one. Soldiers still looked to me to lead. And so the point of that story is, as a leader, even when you're in the midst of chaos, personally, professionally, physically, whatever it might be, even when you're in the midst of chaos, you still have to lead, right? And the whole point of my book is, well, how do leaders find clarity? Because I believe that clarity is the solution to chaos. And so to the extent that you as a leader can be prepared for all these different scenarios, you've thought them through, right? Like you're actually executing on your thinking time, you can have clarity to solve chaos for your family, to solve chaos for your teams, your company. And because it's going to happen, right? And, this is one story about one IED. I mean, hundreds of IEDs we came into contact with, hundreds of sniper fired, hundreds of RPGs thrown at us, grenades thrown or shot at us, grenades thrown at us. I mean, this happened every day. I mean, and the beautiful thing about the military is it tested me in the most extreme way as a leader so that I could learn how to deal with chaos, so that now as a father, now as a business owner, I can execute on some of those models that help me stay steady in that moment.
What does it look like to get clear?
Well, I said early, like I'm a model guy. And so I try to think of, in different areas of execution in my life, what would be the model that's the best model that I know of today to bring me optimal success. And doesn't mean that it's going to last the test of time. Like, models get innovated on continuously, right? And certainly in business with technology and, the advancements we're making right now, I mean, it just changes all the time. And so because you have a model today doesn't mean that you don't innovate on it in the future, but we should seek to have a model that provides the base structure of where we launch from, right? Or else we're just ignoring history. So many people in history have proven how to have or how to be a successful father, or how to be a successful business owner. And we should start with where they left off and build from there. And for me, clarity comes in thinking through the situation that you're in, where you're about to go execute on an operation that you have for your business, or you're about to go execute on a lesson that you're going to try to teach your kid, or whatever it might be. You think through the situation. What are the risks in this situation? What are the outside influences? What opportunities or resources do you have that you can deploy? What stories do you have that you can tell to teach with? What models can you leverage from history in this moment, right? This is why I read so much. It's because there's so many brilliant people out there that have done it before me. And I just read every morning. I read because I know I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but they're smart people, and I'm very willing to take their model and then look smart because I've implemented their model.
Totally.
And so for me, it's thinking time. Are you spending time thinking about the situation before you go take action? Action in our culture, especially in the U.S., is celebrated. Go take action. Even if you mess things up, you're still taking action. Well, can you take a moment ahead of that and think about the situation before you take action? And then your probability of success goes way up. And that's it. I think clarity comes from leaders being willing to think what's the most likely course of action, what's the most probable outcome here, the most dangerous outcome, and what's the model that we can use. And then you just go communicate that and teach it to your team.
Yeah.
Right? And then, yeah.
Is there a model that you have used in leadership more than others? One that's gotten more play, more airtime?
Well, I can tell you there's two that I do every single day, and that's vision casting, right? To me, vision is just a model. It's a model for you as a leader to think through, and then a model that you can use to communicate where we're going to your team. And so vision is a thinking model. And people don't think of it that way, but it is, right? If you as a leader are thinking about your vision for the day, and the way I define vision is, if it's done correctly in the end, what does it look like? Simple as that. So if I did whatever I'm about to do, if I had a successful day, at the end of it, what does it look like?
Yeah.
And then I can plan to that outcome. But every single day, I've got a vision for the day. I've got a vision for our company, where we're going in the future. I've got a vision for each player on our team, where I would like them to be in the future, if I did it really well. And it's according to their purpose in life and what they want. But it also is according to what the business needs too. And so we use vision every day. And then the one-on-one, just the format that I use for my one-on-ones, you have this vision as a leader, and if you took it a step further and created a plan, like all of that's great, but then you've got to train, equip, and motivate. And that happens, I think, in the one-on-ones. And so in my one-on-ones, this is the model that we use. First, I always check on the person. If someone's dealing with something personally, they're not going to care about what you're going to talk to them about in the business. And so you always got to check on the person. And I love kind of it's been explained to me, the 3 levels of listening. So level 1 is listening so that I can teach or talk. Level 2 is listening to understand. And then level 3 is listening so that you can know the person. Right. And so in the moment, because I'm an action-oriented person, I continue to remind myself, am I listening to understand the person? And so I'm constantly trying to hit level 3 in my one-on-ones when I'm checking on the person. All right, let's assume that the person is good, okay? Because if they're bad, we gotta work on the person. And even if we spend all 30 minutes working on the person, then I'd say it's successful. But let's assume they're good. Then we go to, well, how did the week go? And what I'm listening to in that week is, did you stay on priority? Did you operate according to the plan that we set last week? Were you successful? If not, what do you need training on, or where can I plug in? Right. And then we just work on that. Once we worked on last week, we say, all right, well, what's the priority for this next week? And what I'm listening for is, do they truly know the priority according to the plan that we put together in the direction of the vision that we've already casted? Yeah. And so if they're on priority, then awesome. If not, I just redirect them. And then I say, where do you need my help? And I just listen. And so they'll tell you where to plug in. And the one last question I ask is, where do you need less of my help? And they tell you where to back out.
That's a great question.
Yeah. I mean, because I don't want to spend my time on things that don't matter. And I certainly don't want my team thinking I'm micromanaging. Yeah. And so if they tell me where to unplug, I'll unplug. And so we do these one-on-ones every single week. And I know what's going on in my people's lives personally. I know what they need training on because we covered last week. I know that they're going to be on purpose for this next week, and I know where to plug in. And if you have that vision and you have somewhat of a plan, and then you just do one-on-ones, so much of business just takes care of itself, right? And then it's just a matter of doing enough thinking as a leader to make as many right decisions as you can. Because I believe success is just how many decisions can you make in a row that's successful?
What should a leader not do?
They shouldn't react. A leader should always respond. And I'm not saying that you're not going to be in situations where you have to react. You can't think of everything. But a person that reacts all the time, they're not going to have influence. Right. They're just they're just not. Like, people don't want to follow someone that's constantly chaotic and just reacting all the time and relying on sheer wit and cleverness in the moment to be successful. They want someone that they can feel safe with, that every decision, no matter how big the team thinks it is, you just happen to have that like steadiness to you because you've thought about it. And you know your company's direction that you're moving, you know the company's purpose, you understand the timeline and the priority, and these are just decisions. Yeah, I try to tell my kids all the time, like, hey man, let's let a small problem be a small problem. I mean, a lot of times we make problems big because of something that's going on in our head, a story that we're telling ourselves. And I just, as a leader, try to limit the storytelling. I try to see it as it is. And I know, and I love, I think it was in the book Essentialism, he called it the fly on the wall. And the beautiful thing about humans is we give great advice. We love to give advice. But then we just suck in the moment, right? Like in giving ourselves advice.
Yeah.
But the tactic is, and the model of how to think is, can you put yourself as a fly on the wall and advise yourself as if you were advising a friend in your situation? Now, what it requires is distancing and a minute of patience in that moment, which people have a hard time doing. They have a hard time distancing themselves from the problem, and they have a hard time giving themselves a moment to think.
Yeah.
But if you can do that, and you can put yourself as a fly on the wall and say, okay, well, if I was advising my best friend on how to take the next step, what would I say? And that is a response. And that's what leaders need to do. And we should never give ourselves a prideful moment in reacting successfully. We could say, thank you, Jesus, that my reaction was successful, but I need to learn from this. How can I prevent myself from being in a reactive moment in the future?
Do you have a moment that you can recall where you were reactive and regretted it?
Oh man, I mean, every day, right? every day as a parent. Yeah, you know what's hard about being a father is, especially one that works, is you've been giving it your all for 12, 15 hours. You just been giving it your all, right? Because you're not, if you're me, you're not an average person. You're trying to be excellent. And so I've been giving it my all for 15 hours, and then I go home to the people that matter the most. And I'm still giving it my all, but my all is just a little less. It's just a little less than it was. And I see my kids every day. And so I don't think as much about them. You know, I thought a lot about this conversation you and I are having right now because I don't get to have this conversation every day. But I see my kids every day. And when you're caught up in a lull of doing something over and over again, you stop to prepare with urgency. And I'll tell you, this is a good story here, but I deployed to Afghanistan with 15 soldiers originally. I was the one officer that reported with a bunch of higher level NCOs, and our job was to go set up essentially the base for our battalion. And so we went 45 days before the 400 infantry soldiers that came in after us. And things were going really well. And I had this guy who was actually a qualified sniper as my kind of assistant, I guess would be the way that you would say it in corporate America. But, you know, he was essentially my bodyguard and kind of my go-to guy in that mission, right? Those first 45 days. When the rest of the battalion came, he was going to go with his infantry unit and be an infantryman like he had trained to be. Well, things were going really well, and we had a really good hold on our mission, and we were prepared early for the battalion to come. And so we were kind of looking for things to do. Well, there was this unit who was doing a supply run who was a man short. And somehow, you know, my warrior sniper buddy of mine got wind of it, and he was like, "Sir, you know, let me go out on this mission with these guys." In the moment, I'm like, "This guy's He-Man. Like this, no one can hurt this guy. He's going to take, even if they did a terrible job as a unit, he's going to take care of himself. I trust this guy with my own life. That was his job to take care of me. And a soldier in a platoon needs help, and we're American soldiers, so we help each other. So I said yes. And he went on that patrol, and they were attacked by the Taliban, and he lost his life that day. And I was the senior ranking officer, and so it was my job to identify his body in the end. And and I knew this. I mean, he was a buddy of mine. I mean, he had a family, a young family, father, and he was a husband. And man, it was just a sure shame. I mean, it was just a shame. Yeah. And what I learned later was that this supply platoon had been doing the mission for the last 200 days the exact same way, multiple times a day, taking the exact route, leaving at the same time in the same vehicle formation, doing the same things every single day, every patrol for 200 days. And you don't have to be a very good foe to figure that out. I mean, I could put you on the streets, and if I did the same thing every day without any military background, you would set up an ambush that would be successful because you're a smart guy. Our enemy is smart, and they do have military experience. What that leader of that organization failed to do was planning with urgency, as if her life and the lives of her soldiers were on the line every single time she went out. And if she would have kept doing that, she would have been creative. She would have innovated. She would have done things differently. At a minimum, she would have left at a different time, or maybe called on a helicopter to go look at the hills on the sides of the street ahead of our patrol, just to see if there was anybody out there hiding for an ambush. I mean, we're in the desert. We were on the border of Iran and Afghanistan, and it was desert. So it wasn't like they could hide all that well. And, so I plan everything with urgency. And look, I know when I'm going to the grocery store, my life isn't on the line. But when you plan going to the grocery store as if your life's on the line, like, do you forget anything? You don't forget anything.
Right.
And so I'm a bit much for people sometimes because I have that urgency about me. But at least you know that I'm going to show up as your leader fully prepared. And I've thought things out. And it's because I've learned this lesson that cost me my friend's life.
Yeah.
That we bring urgency. If you're the leader, and leaders have responsibility for not only your family, but for many people's families, everybody that works a part of your organization. You're responsible for their families, not just the people. You better bring urgency. It's important.
Yeah, very sorry to hear about the loss of your friend.
Yeah.
Tell me about leading in times of loss.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just curious, like, how you showed up during that dark period, a time of mourning, a time of it, and I'm speculating here, right? I'm projecting because I'm imagining that there was a time. Now you're also in war, so I can imagine that you're back to business very quickly because you have to be.
Yeah.
But tell me about that time, however long it may be.
Yeah. In that moment of time, because we were so decentralized, the 15 soldiers that came with me, nobody really knew anybody except for me and him. So it wasn't easy, but it was simple to lead through that. And now I'll tell you another story. We, in Baghdad, when I was leading a platoon against the Al-Qaeda folks, I had a medic who was probably my best infantryman, even though he was a medic. His job was to treat trauma in the field, but man, he was such a good infantryman. And so he would fight until the first casualty, and then you would feel it when he wasn't there because he was just so good with his rifle. And so everybody loved him for that. They loved him because he would save lives, but they loved him because he was just another infantryman too. And, one patrol, we were engaged again with an IED, and he lost both his legs in that patrol, and we saved him. He's in America today. I'm sure he's running miles. I mean, he's just that type of guy. Even with his prosthetic, but he survived and we got him out. I mean, he actually treated himself, which was amazing.
Wow.
But I remember a couple hours later after that patrol, we were tapped to go out again. And my guys were just exhausted, not from the fight, but from the emotional toll of losing a brother that we just cared so much about. That was such a big part of our team's culture, and a leader, and as a medic, an important part of the puzzle too. And we got this new medic who ended up being great, but he was super green, hadn't seen the things that we've seen, and was a lower rank and not near the soldier that this guy was.
Right.
And as a leader, what I did was what I now have modeled as I bleed, sweat, and cry with my team. In that moment, I just addressed it. We were all hurt, right? And I cried, in front of my men, and and I'm 20 years past my military career, but I was a good looking soldier from a physical makeup. I didn't look like the guy that was going to cry. I looked like the guy that could win the knife fight in the foxhole.
Right.
But I cried with them. And then I led them from the front. I didn't ask them to go do something that I wouldn't do. I asked them just to follow me. And that worked, right? I asked them to step up for each other. We had lost him, but we still needed to step up and show up for each other. And I'm going to lead the way. And so I just led. I just took first action. I put myself in harm's way before anyone else. If my wife listens to this, she just probably turn it off at this point because she knows. I wasn't the guy that would tell soldiers to go do something. I was the guy that said, follow me. Mm. And I think because I was willing to bleed, sweat, and cry with my team, because if we had to change a tire, like I would get down there and change a tire with them. If someone needed to kick open a door where we knew somebody was going to shoot at us on the other end, like I'd be the first one in that door. Because they knew that I was that I would cry with them and I hurt just like they did, and that I was willing to step up for them. They stepped up for me. Mm. And that's what most people will do. When you have love, and there's no greater love than to lay your own life down for another. But when you have that type of love that we had amongst our team, we would gladly give our lives for each other. Mm. And so it just needs a leader to show how it's done. And as soon as people see it being done, because they love you, they'll follow you. But you had to have influence too, right? Like the old that's the John Maxwell part of it.
Right.
I had influence with those guys. Yeah. And that's why I was able to get them to move.
Tell me the story of the Good Samaritan.
Yeah, man. Well, I can't take credit for this. I mean, again, it's funny. John Maxwell comes up a lot, but he's written a lot of books, and I'm a reader. So,
yeah, that's right.
There's lots of models out there. But I was fortunate enough to be invited to a small group that got John for an hour, and John didn't teach from a PowerPoint. He just spoke to us like a father. Yeah, coaching his kids. And he told us a story about the Good Samaritan and about how that shapes perspective in life. And, I'll just tell kind of the shortened version of the Good Samaritan. But, there was a person that was on a journey and had all of his possessions with him. And another person saw that and took advantage of him, attacked him, hurt him, and robbed him of all his possessions and left him there to die. Now, the person that attacked him, his perspective was, what's yours is mine, and I'm going to take it. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of takers in the world that have that perspective. They don't care about anybody but themselves, and they will take from you and leave you there hurt. Yeah. Well, the story goes on, and there was a Pharisee, a religious leader, who was walking down the road and saw the person injured on the side of the road. But rather than treat that person, they moved to the other side of the road and continued walking. And that person's perspective is, what's mine is mine, and I'm going to keep it. Which there's lots of people that think of things that way too. We call them selfish, but you don't always notice it in the moment that that's how they're operating. But that's their perspective on life. I'm not going to share. I'm going to keep what I have. And then there's the Good Samaritan, who comes along, sees the hurt person, takes care of the hurt person, treats them, and then even takes them to a hotel where they check them into a room and they pay in advance for that person to stay there and recover. And then they talk to the hotel owner and say, take care of this person. Whatever debts they accumulate, I will be back and I will settle their debts. Now, his perspective, and this is what everybody knows about the Good Samaritan, is what mine is yours, and I'm going to give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And we celebrate that person in our culture because we love a giver. Now, what John told us, which was the real challenge on perspective in life, and what I think has just blessed my life in so many ways, is there's a fourth perspective in that story. And it's what is mine was never mine.
Right.
Everything I have is a gift. My wife's a gift. My kids are a gift. My businesses are a gift. Whatever wealth I've accumulated is a gift. So much of that is timing. And so much of it is I was given a brain and a body that could move and think. Everything was a gift. And the point is that when everything you have is a gift, you are to steward those gifts.
Yeah.
And you are to help people with that.
Mm.
And you are to go out and double your gifts so that you can give more.
Yeah.
So whatever wealth I have, I'm out to double it. And it's not because I need more. It's because it's what I have is a gift. And if I double it, I can give twice as much. And so I walk around this world now knowing that everything I have is a gift.
Yeah.
Sitting here with you is a gift. And I'm stewarding it the best that I can, by telling you things that I've learned in leadership and encouraging people to live with love. And that's the whole point of it. If you can have a perspective on life that everything you have is a gift and that you are to steward it, you're going to show up as a leader just over and over and over again. And there'll be takers, right? And there'll be people that keep theirs, and there'll be people that give you things too. But you will always be a leader of people because you just keep showing up.
I really like the thought that rather than it's my house, this is my business, these are my kids, this is my spouse, right? Like there's a lot of attachment in all of that.
Yeah.
And I love how I feel when I just say, for the time being, I'm the caretaker of this home.
Yeah.
The bank technically owns my house anyway.
Yeah.
I don't own my kids. I'm shepherding them in ways, right? They are their own being. And that, feels freeing to me.
Oh, yeah.
To remember that. And it reminds me of my impermanence, which I think is really healthy. Oh, yeah. Allows me to feel grateful in a different way, to recognize that at some point this is not mine, and for the moment I get to care for it.
Yeah.
I think I love the person, the possibility even more when that's the case.
Yeah.
Because the idea of letting something go really does help you appreciate it. You hear that constantly, right? You can probably take electricity for granted every single day, but if your electricity went out for a week, when it turned back on, you would be like, thank God, right? Like totally. You would just love it. Yeah. We did a family road trip one summer in a 17-foot teardrop trailer that we pulled behind a minivan. But when I moved into my new home that I was waiting to move into, I remember standing in the shower every single day being like, I have a shower.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Dude, I never appreciated a shower more than I did after a couple months on the road. It was wild.
Yeah. So I mean, if my kids hear me tell one more war story, they're just gonna walk away because we didn't have We didn't have AC.
Yeah.
I had a heat rash for 6 months.
Yeah.
Because it was so hot and I had body armor on. I had to sleep in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do think it's freeing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way that you're supposed to live.
Mm-hmm.
If like this world is but just a vapor in time, mm-hmm. And we're here to steward those gifts, to give, to love, and to just put the world in a better position than where we were in the beginning.
So true.
Yeah. I mean, so much of the pain that we go through as humans is just from the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not spiritual pain. In the Bible, it says God's yoke is easy. All he wants you to do is love him and love his children. That's the only thing we have to do on this earth is love. That's it. Yeah. I tell my kid, like when we're on the way to school and somebody's got a big test, I'm like, babe, give it your all, right? Because in our house, we're pursuing excellence. But all you have to do today is walk through those halls at school and be the most loving person you possibly can be. And then you did your job.
Yeah.
Everything else is a pressure you put on yourself or the world's trying to put on you. And that's a hard way. It's a harder way to live. Yeah. Now we can't walk away. I mean, like, look, I got to put food on the table, right? Like I can't walk away from every worldly pressure, but I can understand that is of the world and it is freeing. And leaders that live a freer life in that regard are more steady.
Yeah.
Spiritual health matters when you're leading. It'll make you more steady.
I love how much you enjoy being a dad.
Yeah.
Tell me about a habit or a routine that you have with your kids that is something you're doing well.
Well, I'll just tell you our morning routine, and I think that it just tees up everything. But again, it's a leadership lesson, right? Every morning I have my own routine, and it's to build myself into a position where I have peak energy and that I've not only loved God, but I've loved myself. And I know that if you go to God for perfect love, that need in your life is satisfied. Then if you love yourself, then you're going to be more capable of loving people. And when you've done those two things, you can go love the rest of the world, even though they're imperfect, and just see them for the goodness that they have, right? And that's where grace shows up, is in that moment, like where you can look past every fault they have and still love them for the good things. And that's because perfect love's already been satisfied and you love yourself. And you have to check those blocks off. And so I do that with some physical and reading routine in the morning. And the last thing that I do is I turn off my worship music when I'm working out. I have a quick prayer, and then I go wake my kids up. And I always start off with my son. He's younger, and my daughter's like turning into a teenager now, so it's a little bit harder to wake her up. So I start with the easy one, right? I don't swallow the frog first. I start with the easy one, try to build momentum. And so I go to my son, and I wake him up, and I say, "Hey, dude." And he goes, "Hey, Dad." And my son, he repeats things because he thinks it's polite. And I go, "Man, I've been missing you all morning." And he's like, "I'm missing you too." Oh, he just woke up. He ain't missing me. And I go, "I'm just so proud of you, man." And he goes, "I'm proud of you too, Dad." And I go, "Hey, we're going to have an awesome day." And he said, "Yep." And he'll jump up. And so what I did was I took my good energy as a leader and I transferred it into my first teammate. And listen, I didn't give him a choice. I told him 3 things that I want him to start his day with, that his dad's been missing him, that he's like yearned for. Like I want him in my life, that I'm proud of him. I'm proud of who he is and the things that he does. No matter how hard he is on himself, I'm proud of him, and that he's going to have a good day. There's no choice. You're going to have a good day. And then let's go get your sister. And do the same thing. I try to do the same thing with his sister, You
send him in.
I send him in just like a good leader would.
Go in there.
Yeah. No.
Good luck, son.
Yeah. No, we'll walk out of that battle zone sometimes and he'll just go, "Sheesh."
Yeah.
But, then I run down there to my wife, and I try to transfer the energy to my wife too. And then when I show up at work, I try to transfer the energy to my team at work. But I do that every morning. And then on the way to school, we do a devotional. So in the Holy Bible app, they have like a children's area where there's a child's devotional, and it's like some other kid teaching for 30 seconds about something, and then we talk about it. And it gives me an opportunity to pour into them spiritually, so that we were just talking about freedom, that they're free at the start of the day, that they're free, at least in that moment, of the world's influence on them.
Yeah.
And that, I'm a home builder, right? That their foundation is built on rock.
Yeah.
Right. So even if the storm comes, because we're built on rock, we can weather the storm, right? When chaos shows up, we can weather the chaos because we're built on rock. And I would just say, by the time I've dropped my kids off, they know where their dad stands, and they've had a little bit of spiritual thought poured into them, and they're ready for the day's challenges. And I don't want to protect them from every day, but I want to teach them how to think.
Yeah.
So that they can make it through that day as a person of love and not a fighter or someone that's going to spread hate or someone that's going to go and divide or whatever that side of the world does. My children are going to pull people together. I love a three-stranded rope is much stronger than a single strand. They're going to pull people together. They're going to make them feel loved. And that's what they're going to do.
Tell me about how you as a dad handle conflict, problems, misbehavior, whatever. You have to step into a more serious role, correction, insert whatever other word might align with you. But how does dad show up during those times?
Yeah, dad's still an ex-infantry guy, right? So I've got it in me to snap soldiers in line. And sometimes that's what it takes, right? Like I need them to know that dad's serious in this moment. In the beginning, though, I try to study all behavior, and I try to approach behavior with curiosity, meaning like every behavior is for a reason. And I know that our brains use two feelings more than most to operate. They use hurt and fear. And so most of the time when there's conflict in the house, it came from a position of hurt or fear. Sure. And so, you got to get control. So I go into the environment and I grab control. All right. And make sure that everybody understands that I'm serious and that we're going to talk about this. And then I get curious. I ask some questions to figure out what's happening. What is fear driving this or is hurt driving this? Most of the time it's hurt, right? And usually hurt comes from a missed expectation. And so once you figure out what the missed expectation is, you've diagnosed a problem, you can fix that. Now, hurt that's not dealt with turns to anger, and some people move to anger faster. And so, the person that gets to anger faster, you just got to get in there and you got to say, hey. Like, all right, let's just take a moment to just calm down. All right. Like, let's get control of your emotions first, because while the emotional part of the brain is in control, the logical part can't work.
Right.
And so we've got to get back to logic. And I talk to my kids this way. They're 8 and 11, but they've got enough to understand that part, right? Like they know there's a reptile brain and they know there's a logical part of the brain. And so we try to get back to the logical part, and then we discuss expectations, and then we discuss compromise. What is something that you could have asked your sister that would have been a good compromise, that would have been a win-win, a loving response in that moment, rather than a take or a physical kind of approach to things. And so I try to talk to them like little people, but in the end, I'm leading. I'm teaching them how to think, right? To understand that my brain is doing things for a reason. And so can I be logical even in these moments of high emotion, because I understand my brain and why it's working, and I understand what's going on. I'm creating framework in their mind to make them thinkers and better handlers of situations, because not everybody is going to have me as a father or have read the books that I've read. And so they're not going to understand the framework of the brain. Right. And so my kids are going to have to lead. And, or as I tell them, like, hey, when you're leaders, sometimes you just accept not being right. Like we call it the bigger person, right? Like that's what the general kind of name for it, is you be the bigger person. And even though you think you're right, you just accept this as a loss for the end goal of peace, right? And love. And you let them be right. I mean, so many of our conflicts are because two sides are fighting over what's right.
Totally.
And who cares? Like 9 times out of 10, who cares who's right?
Yeah, I do a lot more than I should.
Well, but like
I'm calling myself out right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's like me too, right? Because I'm the leader. I've been making decisions all day long at work. Come home and make some more decisions. So I like being right. I think about it a lot. Yeah. But when we fight over being right, there's little to win in that situation.
That's correct.
It just hurts people.
Yes.
And so I don't know. We talk a lot. Yeah. I mean, I put people on timeout, and we have consequences, right? Like funny, I was telling you, I train my children, and we're training for behaviors and thinking styles that we want them to have. Yeah, we're training for behaviors and thinking styles that we want them to have as adults, right? And so I make my kids say yes sir and no sir. Yeah. And it isn't because I'm like trying to make little polite humans or that daddy needs an ego scratch, right? I say yes sir, and then my kids go yes sir, and I say, hey, why does daddy make you say yes sir? And so we think before we speak, and that's it. That's it, guys. Like, you need to be able to think before you speak, because your words have power, and they can hurt or they can build people up. And I want you to think before you speak so you can always be building people up. And so, do that. And
is that the pause, by the way? Like when you just say yes, sir, that's like a trigger to, hey, because I have a script that I get to respond with, that gives me a momentary pause, a breath to be able to choose my next words versus just like whatever reactive thought, feeling I have is the next thing that comes out of my mouth. Is that what you mean?
That's it. Yeah. I'm training them to be people that respond. Yeah. Right. Like, you have to think before you speak if you're going to be a person that responds. Yes. Otherwise, you can be like everybody else and you can just react. You can be a level 1 listener nonstop. And the best thing that I could do for my children and for this world as a whole is to turn them into level 3 listeners, leaders that respond and that are steady and make people feel safe. And we all have the opportunity to make everyone that we come into contact with safe. Yeah.
Tell me those 3 levels again.
Yeah. Level 1 is I'm listening so that I can speak back. Right. Level 2 is I'm listening so that I can learn from you. Right. Level 3 is I'm listening so I can understand you as a person. Yeah. Yeah. And, level 2 is awesome, by the way. And that's what we do when we go to conferences and things like that. Right. And a lot of times when we're having coffee with someone, we're just trying to learn from them. And we want to do that. And certainly we got to have a conversation, right? So it's 2-way, right? That's why it's called a conversation. But if we can listen with such intensity that we can see who you are at the core, then I can make you feel good about yourself. Yeah. Like, I can speak to you in the way that you want to be spoken to. And to do that perfectly, it takes time, but to know a little bit, that doesn't take a lot of time. Like, you and I could spend 10 minutes with one another, and you kind of know the foundation of who I am. Right. And if we separate today and we don't see each other for a few weeks, but then you hear something that I can help with because you know me at my core, you'll connect me with someone. Yep. And that's the point, is can you have that type of a connection with every person that you come into contact with? And, my kids are training right now. Yeah. They're young, but they'll remember these conversations, and they're not going to be perfect, and daddy's not perfect either. But my goal is just to build a little bit of a habit where they take a minute to respond.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
They do the fly on the wall.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. So I've got your book here, The Steady Leader. It says leadership models that bring clarity to chaos. What in this book translates well home? In your marriage as a dad, what principles do apply?
Well, I sure hope that everything in the book applies to home too, right? Because when I came up with the title and the concept of the book, I asked myself, what gift do I give the world of who I am? And that, it starts first with my family and then to my business. And, the gift that I give my family is that I'm steady, right? They feel safe with dad. And that my love is steady for them. I'm not loving them intensely in one moment and not a lot in another. I mean, my love is hopefully always intense for them.
Yeah.
But you got to lead yourself every day. You got to lead your team, and then you got to lead your business. And I think if you don't lead yourself, you can't be who your team needs you to be thriving. And the one thing that I do for my family every day is I get myself up. I make good decisions about my health. In the Army, we call it combat ready. You receive a mission, you're able to step off and execute right away. I'm combat ready every day to be the father and the husband that they need me to be. And, my routine, again, another model, right? Hal Elrod wrote the book Miracle Morning. I didn't have a miracle morning for myself until I read that book. And I was like, oh, this dude's got a model.
Yeah.
And I'll implement that. And so I built myself a little model for the morning so that I can be healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Right.
And when I take care of that, I'm combat ready to be a father and a husband. And I think that's the model that kind of gives you, again, the foundation of rock, gives you ability to build from there and go get like more complex, higher level of learning than that. But if you just did those things, right? If you just, for me, if I read my Bible every day, I'm going to be a loving person every day. Because I start my day with the word that's completely selfless. It ain't about me. And if I start every day with that, then of course I'm going to go lead in a selfless way.
Yeah.
Now, if I miss that, a couple weeks in a row, then I'm going to start to let the world influence me, and I'll be different, right? I'll be different.
You mentioned working hard.
Yeah.
Right. You mentioned some long days and maybe even how challenging that is to then come home and still have the energy for your most important, mission of the day.
Yeah.
What do you think about a culture that talks about grinding and working your ass off? Like, where is that appropriate? Where is that not appropriate? How do you, especially coming from your background, I know that working hard is not a problem for you. How do you view that for yourself and others?
Yeah, my ability to work hard is a strength that needs to be managed. I'm blessed with endurance. I just am. Part of it is because I have a purpose of my life that I'm just fired up about. And so I can go and go and go and go. But I'll tell you, one of my most critical lessons learned as a leader, again, like a lot of my leadership quality or principles were formed in combat. We were more than halfway through our deployment, and we had just been fighting every day, relentlessly, people getting hurt every day. And my team just over time just got worn down. Didn't matter how good of a leader I was. Everybody has a breaking point. And I had the first truck as the same leader on every patrol. And it made common sense for me because why change it up? I mean, he knew everything. He was our best navigator. He knew where every bag of trash was located in the city. He knew the people because he was leading. He never had to look at the back of another truck. He was always full windshield, could see everything. And it made so much common sense as a leader to just keep him going. Well, shame on me. I expected him to have the same endurance that I have. He came to me one day and just said, "Sir, I can't do it anymore. I can't be the first truck responsible for everyone else's life behind me, every single mission. It's so much responsibility, and I'm the one that ends up getting blown up the most anyways. And it's just, I can't do it anymore." And in that moment, as soon as he opened his mouth, it's almost as if I was like, oh my goodness. Yes, I love you. I'm sorry. And I'm so happy that you came to me now before you actually broke. Because we sent 8 soldiers home because of stress-induced trauma. They were stress casualties. And so it was happening. And he gave me the opportunity to fix it before he had that casualty or became a casualty. And so the next logical thing for me was to just rotate trucks. Everybody was going to have their chance of being the leader, and we were going to distribute the risk and the responsibility. Well, that happened successfully for about a month, maybe 45 days. And then other soldiers came to me and said, "Sir, we can't do this. Like we're so terrified that we can't operate the way that we know the first truck should operate. And you got to remove us from the mix." And so, I'm strike two on this. And so as a leader, I'm thinking, all right, you know what? Follow me. My truck will be the first one. We're the strongest truck. I can control the headspace of the vehicle, and we'll be the first truck every time. And we actually made it a little bit further in that. I think we made it probably 3-4 months. And then my guys came to me one day, my guys in my truck, and they just hit their knees and they cried. They couldn't even get it out that they couldn't do it anymore. They just were crying because they felt such remorse and shame that they couldn't keep going with me.
Was it mostly the fear of being hit by an IED? Was that it? Or were there other responsibilities that
it was that, but the lead truck identifies the IEDs before they strike the vehicles behind them too.
Yeah.
So you had your brother's hands or their lives in your hands too.
Yeah.
And so it was dual responsibility, not only your life.
A lot of attention, yeah.
I mean, yeah, you had to be perfect.
Yeah.
You had to spot it before you blew you up, or you had to spot it before you blew your friend up.
How fast were you driving, by the way, during these? Like if you're spotting,
most of the time, 10 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour. Yeah. I mean, we got to the point where we just started walking.
Yeah.
Because we could see them further out if we were walking than if we were driving around.
Yeah. I would think, I don't know shit about war, but I would think that, have they developed the technology now where a drone could fly in front of your truck with some type of radar to spot them? Is that being...
Yeah, I think some of that technology is out there, but we don't have so many of those assets that we can be everywhere at all times.
Yeah, that's right.
And so during the surge, General Petraeus surged most of our army into territory so that we could smother the enemy.
Yeah.
And it worked. I mean, that was the right move. But in surging all of our ground soldiers, we had too many assets on the ground that the air couldn't cover.
Yeah,
so you had to prioritize. All right, so I've got my soldiers there on their knees crying, and eventually I got it out of them. And so I'm reflecting now as a leader. I've gone through the same mistake 3 times in a row. And I'm a person that prides themselves on learning a lesson once. I was in my young 20s and maybe I've gotten better, but it wasn't because I didn't care, and it wasn't because I wasn't smart. I mean, I'm the same person I am today that I was then, but I just didn't get it, right? And so I made the same mistake 3 times as a leader, that you can't expect other people to run at the same pace that you do.
Right.
We all have superpowers, and we all have different levels of endurance, and it is wrong for you as a leader to expect the same thing out of your team as you do of yourself. And so I've learned this lesson now, and to wrap the story up, because a lot of people will think, well, what happened? Yeah, I just rotated I stayed in the first truck and I rotated people throughout the truck, and that seemed to work. That got us to the end. And so the people rotated, the leader didn't. I was the only one that was in the first truck every time. And so I kind of controlled the mood, kept people, fresh, and tried to take the responsibility myself. But leaders have to understand that people have different levels of production. They have different superpowers. They want different things for their lives. And you don't have the right to push them to the edge or to ask them to do something that you ask of yourself. I mean, you have to have grace as a leader. You have to see people for who they are, what they want for their lives, and meet them there in that moment. And so, kind of coming all the way back to, how I come home at the end of a long day, I've kind of just fine-tuned this thing. Like, I know that I need to be home somewhere between 4:30 and 5:15 if I'm going to give my family my best. So I've got to wrap it up around then, right? So that I still have a little bit more in the tank to give them the love that they deserve and the attention that they deserve. And my father taught me that. My father never said no. If I wanted to do anything, he just said yes. And so I find myself remembering that loving moment from him and that lesson from him. And I want to be the dad that comes home, and no matter what they ask me to do, I just say yes. Oh, you want to throw a football? Yes. You want to jump on the trampoline? Yes. You want to play a board game? Yes. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. I want to say yes. And to do that, I've got to manage my energy too. And I'm not perfect at this. And sometimes business demands that I stay longer. But as a whole, my approach to this whole thing is to not only manage my own energy and endurance, but also manage my expectations for other people too, so that I can see them, show them grace, and love them for who they are and the strengths that they have, and not think like, oh, well, they don't, like, Jack doesn't give as much effort as Susie, and therefore Jack's my favorite. Like, I don't see things that way. I see them as individuals. I have visions for each individual and how they plug into the team. And I do expect a lot from each individual, but my expectations are based on who they are and what they want for their life.
Right.
And not one thing matches all.
Let's wrap with this question. Yeah. This concept of the steady leader, you were telling me about your son who introduced you. Yeah. This is my dad. He's the steady leader. Yeah. It's not something you've required him to say. No. This is something that he just picked up, along the way. I think that's beautiful, man. I think that's super cool. So maybe what we can do is, I think we should wrap with talking about what it means to be steady. Yeah. Just if you can, and you can share whatever stories or models or whatever you want to around this subject. And I think the invitation will be, it's a call to action at the end for people to be a steady leader, and perhaps even a good commercial for the book itself, because that's what it's titled, The Steady Leader. Yeah. And I also want to say, from a brand perspective and getting to know you, like, it's very fitting. Yeah. That is very on brand for you. I've experienced that with you in the time that we've spent together. So great title, and well done working on that in your own life. Yeah. That's something that I appreciate and trust, and something that I could get better at personally, is to be that. Because I can be very emotional, could be very high and low, and I feel all of it. And I don't think many people would put me in the category of just like, oh, John's super even keeled.
But those are your superpowers too. Yeah,
in many ways they are. Yeah. And an Achilles heel. Yeah. So anyway, tell me about the steady leader for yourself.
Yeah, my belief is that every leadership book that's out there is written to help you become more of a steady leader. Mm-hmm. So at the end, that is the payoff, right? And the reason why that payoff is so important is because we need our teams that we lead to feel safe. When our teams feel safe, not only with their innovation and their willingness to take risk and willingness to be entrepreneurial and kind of go-getters, all of that stuff will take off. But when they feel safe, they will allow us to influence them. And if we can influence them, we can lead them. And if we can lead them, we can be successful. I mean, we just can. And so for me, every day, in this order, I lead myself, I lead my team, I lead my business. And it's in that order. And I think that if people get anything from this conversation from me, is that you have a responsibility as a leader to lead yourself nonstop and first and foremost. And That requires you having vision for yourself. That requires you having purpose that's dialed in and worth you giving it your all every single day without a loss of energy. It requires you being combat ready, so that when you're given the mission every single day, you don't get to take a day off from being dad. Every day you wake up and you have the title dad. Every day. And dad's a leadership role. So every day we lead. Doesn't mean that we're perfect leading every day, but every day we have the responsibility to lead. And so every day, if you're a leader, you have the responsibility of leading yourself first so that you can be the best that you can be. So we got to be combat ready. We've got to understand how to get into peak position from an energy standpoint. And we've got to be planners, with urgency. If we're going to lead appropriately, we got to plan with urgency as if our life's on the line. And if we can lead ourselves with those things every single day, and it sounds like a lot right now, but when you're doing it every day, some of the stuff starts to just fall into place. You pick up little models here and there, and it just moves into a natural rhythm. And then you become the leader that because you've built a habit, you just say, hey, can I just have 1 second to think about that?
Yeah.
And your team, even the most urgent player on the team who likes to move fast, when you say, hey, can I just have 1 second to think about that? They're going to give a sigh of relief because they know their leader's a thinker and he's about to respond and not react to this moment. And I just think that's the key there. What thinking do you have to do? What things do you have to do to get clarity every day so that when chaos shows up, you can remain steady? And that's the key to it all. And I wish I could say it better than that, but I think that's it, is every day, if you can show up steady, people will let you influence them. And that's it. And then once you get really good at it, then you start teaching them how to think the way that you do so that they can go be leaders of their teams too. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah. Appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much for the conversation. The book is called The Steady Leader, Leadership Models That Bring Clarity to Chaos. Schuyler Williamson. Guys, go check it out. Get a copy. There's some great, stories that you've pulled from your experience with the military. And I love how you've taken those principles, applied it to business. You've done so well in business, but the thing that we appreciate, and especially in this community, is how well you've done as a family man and that you're leading in that way. I want to say thanks to Ken Wimberly for, introducing us originally. I think I met you on a trail walking or running downtown Austin. Yeah. And that was super cool, so kind of fate brought us together in that way. Yeah. And then when the book came out, especially Ken was like, Schuyler's legit, man. He's an incredible leader. You definitely will enjoy a conversation with him. Trust him immensely. And so grateful that you and he have partnered up. I know Laundry Love is just doing well and will continue to do even better, which is so fantastic. So I'll look forward to just following along on your journey, man, and seeing how the impact continues to grow. So well done. And thanks again for being my guest.
Oh man, I'm grateful to be here. And I'm grateful for the work that you do for people. For guys like us, every day we wake up and say, how can we put more love into the world? Yeah. And I think you're doing it. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. And yes, I'm going to keep doubling down on that principle. It seems like after all the models that I learned, dude, love coming back to that place. Yeah. I can really think about where I've been winning as a dad and where I've lost as a dad. And I do think that's simply coming back to love. Now, I say this often, so somebody who's listened to the show probably have heard this before, but I've asked a lot of people about their advice around fatherhood over the years. And young guys tend to give me a lot of advice about fatherhood. Do this, do that. It's a lot of things. Yeah. The older guys, the ones that have been down that road, maybe they're grandfathers now, their advice gets shorter and shorter and shorter, which is awesome because they're kind of distilling the wisdom, right, into the most important thing. Yeah. And if I had to come up with a theme of the older guys, it's simply love them. Yeah. They go, how do you be a great dad? They go, love them. Mm-hmm. And what I'd imagine is if they got a second sentence, it probably would be something of what you landed on, which is, hey man, first love yourself. Yeah. And then it would be a lot easier to love your kids.
Yeah.
A lot of when we're not loving our kids is probably coming from not loving ourselves.
Yeah.
If we carry the anger, shame, resentment, guilt, and we're beating ourselves up inside, it's really hard to just be this loving force who listens well to others and has capacity and bandwidth. So maybe that will be my advice at the end is love yourself, love your children, right? And I think that's a good principle, and that's where you're landing a lot of it, especially with being steady. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm grateful.
Next time.
Yes, sir.
See ya.
Thanks for listening today, fellas. If you got value from this episode, I ask that you take 1 second right now and you share this with another dad in your life that you respect, that you know is committed to becoming a better man, family man, and businessman. And on that note, I want to honor you for choosing growth. Your family will thank you years from now for all the effort that you're putting in to learn the strategies so you can show up more fully for them today. Take care.